In his hut on Tatooine, Obi-Wan Kenobi describes the Force to a starry-eyed Luke Skywalker as, quote, an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together, end quote. Since then, though, things have become a lot more complicated, with new Force powers introduced all the time that are awesome, but are more than a little confusing. With that in mind then, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is Star Wars, 8 insane Force powers that literally make no sense. Number 8, Force Bellow. Perhaps one of the strangest Force powers Star Wars has to offer is Force Bellow. The ability is strangely specific and offers no real tangible use, other than allowing the user to significantly amplify their voice. Force Bellow has only been seen in Legends, such as the 2003 micro-series Star Wars Clone Wars, where the power is used to crush walls onto General Grievous during the Separatist invasion of Coruscant. The power was also used during a eulogy at Mara Jade Skywalker's funeral. Basically, the ability is the Force's equivalent of a microphone, even though microphones themselves have been seen frequently in Star Wars, making Force Bellow even more useless than it initially seems to be. Since this bafflingly pointless ability found its way into the Star Wars expanded universe, George Lucas did make it very clear that, to him, Star Wars canon actually didn't consider the EU at all. Number 7, Battle Meditation. Battle meditation increased morale and support, and so became heavily used across the space opera. Introduced in 2003's Knights of the Old Republic, battle meditation was utilized by Bastila Shan, first during the Jedi Civil War, then again during the Battle of Rakata Prime, ultimately allowing the Republic to destroy the Star Forge. The power has also managed to make its way into canon, with it briefly appearing in the Clone Wars TV series, though it has been used far less than it was in Legends. Battle meditation seems to be a little bit more complex than simply being a morale-boosting ability, though. According to Grand Admiral Thrawn in Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire, the Rebellion was able to emerge victorious at the Battle of Endor because Palpatine overused battle meditation, making Imperial forces mindless puppets who then could not make the independent tactical decisions once the Emperor stopped using the power. So not only does battle meditation seem to be a morale-boosting ability, it can also act as a light form of mind trick in which you can spread across as many people as possible, I guess. Speaking of which though, number 6, the mind trick. Probably one of the most popular Force abilities in Star Wars, the Mind Trick allows the user to influence their victim's mind, persuading them to do something they otherwise would not want to do. Mind tricks were first seen, of course, in the eponymous 1977 film, in which Obi-Wan Kenobi used it to bypass a squad of stormtroopers in order to reach Mos Eisley. Despite mind tricks being used frequently in Star Wars, its actual workings are kinda poorly explained. Upon its use by Kenobi on Tatooine, he explains to Luke that, quote, the Force can have a strong influence on the weak-minded, end quote. Logically, the strong-minded should remain unaffected by a mind trick then, as Luke later experiences in Return of the Jedi when he attempts and fails to use the power on Jabba the Hutt. What doesn't make sense about the mind trick though is what a weak mind actually is, and who and why someone is weak-minded. In The Phantom Menace, for instance, Watto resists a mind trick from Qui-Gon Jinn, though the film does nothing to suggest that Watto is particularly intelligent. There is also no reason why the mind trick Jinn used on the Gungan leader Boss Nass should have worked, since Nass is later seen to be tactically and strategically quite competent during the planning of the Battle of Naboo. Overall, mind tricks in Star Wars are not wholly consistent and need a little bit more explaining for them to make total sense. Number 5, Force Drain. Potentially one of the most sinister powers Star Wars has to offer is Force Drain. Force Drain is a power closely linked to dark side users, simply because the ability grants the user to remove all life from an organism until the organism is completely dead. The most famous practitioner of Force Drain was the ancient Sith Lord Darth Nihilus, who constantly hungered for Force energy. This old lad became so skillful in the ability and worked up such an appetite that he was even able to drain whole planets of life in an instant. With how exceptionally strong Force Drain can be then, this power likely falls under the same category of other abilities like Force Plague, of being moves that are fun to mess around with in Star Wars games, but are too powerful for them to exist in the mainline Star Wars continuity at large, at least in their Legends form. Still, a version of Force Drain does exist in Star Wars canon, as Palpatine used the ability on Rey and Ben Solo to restore his strength in The Rise of Skywalker, and the Dathmorian witch, Mother Talzin, was able to utilize a form of Force Drain on Count Dooku during the Clone Wars. Even so, the ability in canon is a shell of its capabilities in Legends, luckily for our heroes. Number 4, Essence Transfer. Arguably the most controversial Force power in Star Wars, Essence Transfer permits the user to transfer their spirit or essence, hence the title, into another body, essentially giving the user a form of invincibility. The power was famously used by Palpatine in the Legends comic book line Dark Empire, and was heavily implied to have been what the late Emperor used to preserve his life in The Rise of Skywalker. Like Force Heal, Essence Transfer has massive consequences for Star Wars and the workings of the Force. With Palpatine using the power in Episode 9, there is now precedent for him to just continue living, even after Rey defeated him in the film's climax, since only his body was destroyed and not his spirit. So, thanks to Essence Transfer and the way it was handled in The Rise of Skywalker, there's still a sense that anything could happen, and that this ending isn't quite as definitive or as impactful as it could have been. If Palpatine can use Essence Transfer, then who else in this franchise could use this power? Number 3. Force Speed. First seen in The Phantom Menace, Force Speed allowed a Force user to travel at dramatically fast pace. The power has appeared in both Legends and canon, with The Force Unleashed and Jedi Fallen Order using the power frequently throughout the game's stories. Even though this power has been used countless times in Star Wars, its existence in the Star Wars universe has quite a lot of implications that George Lucas likely didn't plan for. For instance, since Obi-Wan was clearly seen to use the power in the opening of The Phantom Menace, it is virtually unexplainable as to why he didn't later use the power on Naboo to catch up to his master during their duel with Darth Maul, which then could have prevented Jyn's death. There is also no reason as to why Kenobi did not use it to catch Jango Fett on Kamino, which could have potentially prevented the outbreak of the Clone Wars had Fett revealed Count Dooku hired him to be the donor of the Republic's clone army. Number 2. Force Dyad. Introduced in The Rise of Skywalker, a Force Dyad was an exceptionally rare power that was shared amongst a pair of Force users. The Dyad ties into other powers like Force Bond and Force Heal, essentially joining the two together across space and time. In canon, the only time a Force Dyad has been seen on screen is between Rey and Kylo Ren. Whilst in concept a Force Dyad sounds interesting and even somewhat logical in Star Wars, when extra thought is given to the power and its workings, many questions do begin to seep through. What is possibly the most confusing aspect of a Force Dyad is how and why this ability comes to fruition. According to the Rise of Skywalker Visual Dictionary, a Force Dyad can only be formed with a light and dark side Force user, as the power requires total balance. Since Rey and Kylo Ren perfectly balance out in the Force, a dyad between the two could make sense. Even so, Rey and Kylo Ren having the only Force dyad known in Star Wars is a little bit questionable, especially when looking at other candidates who are more deserving of the link, like Luke and Anakin Skywalker. Ultimately, the Force itself chooses who will share a dyad, making the choice of Kylo Ren and Rey even more perplexing, as other Force users have a much bigger stake in the Skywalker saga than them. Number 1. Force Heal. This power has been seen several times in Star Wars now, both in canon and Legends. The Rise of Skywalker liberally used Force Heal throughout the film's runtime, but Force Healing was not a Disney addition, and had actually been used somewhat frequently under Star Wars Legends, such as in the Knights of the Old Republic games. Even so, the power was used differently in Legends than in canon. In Legends, the power was mostly used to cure yourself and others, with a far lesser focus on being able to fully resurrect the dead. In canon, the power seems to be only used to prevent death, or to outright revive the dead, as seen in The Mandalorian, where Grogu uses this power. Not only does this power merely get a vague explanation of transferring Force energy from one person to another in The Rise of Skywalker, but it kinda just breaks Star Wars in a lot of ways. With the introduction of this power into canon, suddenly a myriad of questions present themselves to keen-eyed Star Wars fans, such as just how rare is it and why haven't we seen any of the major characters use it before if they were so powerful? Now that Force Healing has made its way into canon, suddenly dead is almost meaningless, as if someone can wield this power, then anyone can be fully resurrected as long as they're on hand. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think about these Force powers, and are there any explanations for them that I've missed off here? While you're down there as well, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.